Welcome to You, Me and the Counselling World, the podcast dedicated to student counsellors and their road to getting qualified and beyond. Today, we're going to talk about money and how well that fits within the counselling world. Hello everybody, I'm back. I've just come back from Mallorca. It was very nice. Very hot, absolutely boiling, but very nice nonetheless. And I've hit the ground running today, and I've got some admin done, I've got some marking done, and I thought to myself, I really want to chat to you all. So here I am, because whilst the college is closed, that means that I've got more time. And oh my goodness, it feels lovely. So it means that I've got a little bit of time where I can sit down and dedicate a little bit of extra time for you guys over the summer. And I hope that you enjoy what I put out there. Because I really do, I know I keep on saying this, but I really do enjoy recording these podcasts. I enjoy the interactions between you and I love putting it all out there. I kind of even like editing it, really. Dare I say it? So I like it, but sometimes time isn't on my side. So it's nice to be able to sort of put a little bit of extra time in and put some episodes out for you. So here I am with a little bit of a croaky voice, but I'm here and I'm ready. I always think whenever I've been flying the next day, I always feel a bit way. Do you know what I mean? So today I just feel a bit, ugh. But the cat woke us up in the night meowing all evening. So I think that, I say all evening, all night, I think he was a bit concerned about us having gone away. And then we did have a cat sitter. We didn't leave him to fend for himself. We had a cat sitter, but I think they are sensitive creatures, aren't they? And he really wanted to be with us last night, and so lots of meowing and, oh my goodness, yeah, he's been quite clingy today. So I've kind of hit the ground running today. I thought it was quite brave of me to go straight back to work the next day after only landing yesterday. But I had so much to do, I thought I really got to get on with it. So here I am. And I'm just taking some time out to have a chat with you all, really. And the topic on my lips today is regarding money and counselling, and how the two can sometimes jar each other a little bit. And it's quite interesting because I have lots of supervisees that I've worked with since they were student counsellors, and bit by bit, slowly they're qualifying and they still want to carry on working with me as they build their private practice, which is just great. I love that. I love that I get to stay with them and watch them progress more. But one of the topics that seems to have come up lots of times before I was off on holiday was about money. And it just felt like there was the sign from the universe to put a podcast out to actually talk about this contentious topic of money and how it sits or doesn't sit in the counselling world. So what I'm about to share with you really is just a lot of thoughts, because there isn't really a set right or wrong way. If I put something out there and it's something different to how you do something within your own practice, that is okay. We are all different. So these are just my experiences and my opinions and my thought processes around this. There aren't any hard and set fast rules about it all. So it's going to be a little bit of sort of me sharing my thoughts and really sharing what supervisees have shared with me in many respects, although clearly I can't go into detail, but generally talking about the subject of money, and where sometimes I see people either trip up or I see them start to worry or actually sometimes feel really guilty about the fact that they're now charging for this service. So, where do I begin? I guess I begin at the very, very beginning and thinking about what happens when we are training, we're going through our placement, and we're not really dealing with the money side. Usually your placement provider will be dealing with the money, or it might be that counselling is offered completely free of charge. And therefore you're not being paid at all for your service through your placement. So it doesn't feel like anybody's paying anything to come and see you. They are. Often, technically, they are still paying to come and see you. But it doesn't feel like that. So then what happens is people go through their qualification. They work really hard through their training. They spend lots of money on their training, because let's be honest, it's not cheap to train to become a counsellor. They pay for supervision. They give up, over 100 hours to go and work for free. And then at the end of it, they get the qualification and they go, oh my goodness, I can do what I want with this now. And often people will start to think about going into private practice. And that works really, really well. Except for the fact that suddenly people are charging for their services. Generally speaking, we charge you 40, 50, 60 pounds an hour for people to come and talk to us. I always remember a family member of mine saying to me some time ago, why do people come and pay to talk to you? Who would? And it always stuck with me, this real God, my goodness, people pay that amount per hour to come and talk to you, which obviously was quite an unkind comment now I come to think about it. But that really stuck with me because it was well, why? Why do people pay to come and talk to me? And then I think about what I offer. I offer this non-judgmental space where I really get down with my clients, down into the dirt, offer them empathy and understanding, and be with them in those most difficult times when they're sharing in their lives with me. Maybe I do deserve to be paid for that, because it's a lot to carry, isn't it? And don't get me wrong, I love working with my clients, I love sharing with them, I love being with them in that. But it's a lot to carry. It's emotionally very, very difficult. And that means that most counsellors can't do this job where they work 8 or 9 hours a day counselling continuously, because it's just emotionally exhausting. So therefore, the cost of being with somebody per hour for a professional service is fairly high. And that's just the way that it's set up here in the UK and probably across the world. So, supervisees say to me, oh, I feel really bad. I'm charging. Somebody's paid me. And it suddenly really changes how they feel about counselling. Because here we are wanting to help people, wanting to support them, wanting to be there whilst they share those deepest, darkest thoughts. And then we charge them. And it doesn't seem to fit very well. Although clients expect to pay for the service, they're happy to pay for the service, there's something there about how difficult it can be for the counsellor. And so that's a real big change in their thought process, I suppose, that has to happen, because a lot of people feel really guilty about charging. And they start putting a lot of pressure upon themselves of moving away from what they know, moving away from just being with their client and being themselves and being genuine. And they start to think about other things they want to throw into the mix, almost as if they want to add value to their service in some way. They might be adding things in that aren't really them, or things that they're not really fully trained to do even. But they feel like they want to add something into their service. They don't know who they are as a counsellor now that they're charging. And it feels very different. So I think that's the sort of the premise to how the feelings start in terms of supervisees that I've worked with and my own experiences of setting up a private practice, feeling very different. Suddenly something feels very different. But we do feel guilty. I think we can feel guilty for charging. And I guess that brings us on to the very thorny topic of cancellation fees. There have been many times in my career when I haven't charged a cancellation fee. According to my contract, I should have charged a cancellation fee, but I haven't done. And I find this part of the counselling world extremely difficult, especially when clients have been telling me their major stuff that's been going on in their lives, and I feel so honoured to be there with them. And then one day they don't turn up for some reason, or they cancel at the last minute because, they say they've got a GP appointment or something. What do you do with that? You're running a business. You can't fill that space now because it's too short notice to fill that space with another client. But at the same time, that maybe they do need to go for an appointment, or maybe something. I've often had it with someone's car has broken down even on the way to coming to me, or their kid is poorly and they need to look after their child. Not being able to get childcare seems to be quite a common reason why people need to cancel, often at short notice. And so we need to think about in our policies and in our contracting what this means for us, and in what circumstances will we choose to charge somebody, and in what circumstances will we not choose to charge somebody. Now, if we stick to our contract religiously, most people's contracts would say, I don't know, either 24 or 48 hours notice to cancel a session without charge. Many people's policies will also say that, in the event of an emergency, there wouldn't be a charge. But how do we define emergency? That's a really, really important question. And sometimes we need to really sit down and pin down what circumstances mean that we will charge and what circumstances mean that we won't charge. And I almost feel like you almost need a list of different events in one's life and work out how you feel about charging for those. It's really difficult, isn't it, when you spend so long with a client and you're working with them deeply, and then one day they don't turn up and you're telling them, well, you've got to pay me 40, 50, 60 pounds for that hour. That really, really, for me, that's been the most difficult thing around money and counselling, is thinking about things like cancellation charges, because I absolutely hate charging them. I hate cancellation charges. Don't get me wrong, if I've got a client that doesn't show up and I'm sat waiting for them and they don't arrive, then clearly that's not fair. I'm not going to be sitting there for all that time. And, maybe maybe in that time I've had to get my own childcare, for example. My child is a lot older now, but back in the day, there would have been times I needed to get childcare for me to go and see my clients. So if they don't show up, I've got to pay for childcare, pay for room hire sometimes, and I don't get any fee. So what do we do about this? And my biggest advice to you, I think, is to be really clear about what is deemed an emergency. When you wish to be paid, is it 48 hours? Is it a 48-hour cancellation? Is it 24-hour cancellation? Be really clear and make it so that it feels fair. Fair to you and fair to your client. Because if that's the way it's feeling, then the chances are you'll be able to charge it and not feel awful about it. So have a real think about that for yourself. What is it with cancellation charges? What do you deem to be an acceptable reason? I wouldn't list those reasons anywhere. I'd keep them for yourself, for your own private policy. But have a think about it. It's quite an interesting one to sit down and think about. Another point that I wanted to make is that clients paying for therapy sometimes forms part of the reason why they're able to attend therapy in the first place. So some clients are maybe people that are people pleasers, for example. They always put other people's needs above theirs. They're not able to offload, generally. They don't want to become a burden to anybody. They worry about the impact on other people from them sharing. Now, if they're paying for the service, that is sometimes the one thing that enables them to come for counselling in the first place, because they know they are paying for the service. You as a counsellor are being kind of compensated for the fact that you're working with them. That's how they'll see it in their head. That's not how I see it, but that's how they see it in their own mind. So sometimes just the very fact that they're paying means that they can come for therapy. Now that I always think is really interesting. So hold that in your mind whenever you're thinking about therapy and charging for it. For some clients, this means that they are able to attend because they pay. And if you offered it to them for free, they probably wouldn't come, because they are people that need to put other people's needs further up than their own. Very interesting, I always think, to look at it like that. Okay, so we thought about how and when we charge. And I think that's really interesting and very important to be aware of. There's also a subject around, do we expect clients to pay before a session, or do we like them to pay after a session? So this is another one that can be quite interesting. Some people will say, well, I like a client to pay 48 hours before the session. So if they cancel, I'll keep hold of their payment. Some other people will say, well, I'm happy for a client to pay at any point before the session, so long as I know that I've got the payment in my account before the session takes place. Other counsellors, like myself, are happy to accept the payment after the session, and my ruling on it is that they pay by the end of the day of the session, really. So long as it's paid by, the evening of the session that they've had, then I'm happy with that. Now, of course, for those people that are paying afterwards, there is more scope for them to forget. It's a very emotional thing sometimes, isn't it, where a client comes in, they talk a lot, they share a lot, it's very emotional, they go away, and maybe in their emotion they forget to pay you. So of course, charging afterwards, there is more chance of you needing to chase them up. The other side of the coin is, if you pardon the pun, do you like that one? The other side of the coin is that if they're paying before and they show up for their session and they haven't paid, what do? Do you say to them, look, I'm really sorry, I can't have this session now because you haven't paid for it? Or do you say to them, I've noticed you haven't paid, please can you pay straight away after the session? Do you not say anything at all because it's awkward? I wonder what your thoughts are on that as well. And for me, I would rather they had the session, they made payment on the day. If they forget, I send them a gentle text message reminder to say, just to let you know you've got a payment outstanding, and I'll usually send that the day afterwards. Everybody's different and there's no right or wrong here. But again, it's about thinking about how you want to set up this as a business model for yourself, at the same time as trying to keep in with ethics and making this a professional service. So that's really important, isn't it? Speaking of ethics, there's also something that I've always get a slight bee in my bonnet about, and that is offering discounts for clients that pay in bulk. And they book a bulk number of sessions. So sometimes counsellors will advertise maybe 6 sessions for a set fee, and it's like a discounted rate because someone's booked 6 sessions in advance. Now, I get a bee in my bonnet about this because for me, and I'm talking only from my opinion here, and if you do this in your practice and it works for you, then that is okay. But from my sort of viewpoint on it and from my frame of reference is, if a client has paid for 6 sessions up front, they come for 2 sessions with you, and for whatever reason they don't feel that they're getting what they need, then what? Because they've paid up, they've got a reduced rate, they've paid in full. Do they ask for a refund? Do they just keep on going through the process even though it's not working for them and it doesn't feel safe to them? What does that mean from an ethical point of view when you think about client autonomy, their right to choose? So that's, again, quite a contentious issue, isn't it? It works from a marketing perspective. It works really, really well. But from a client autonomy choice point of view, I'm not sure. And sometimes it leaves me with a really uncomfortable feeling. And that's something I've thought about many times for myself. Why do I feel so uncomfortable with this? And I think it's because it takes away the client's choice. It's awkward for them. It's not easy for them to just get out of that. So again, really think about that. Think about what that might mean for your clients and what that might mean for you in your practice. One more subject around money. What do you think about charging for initial meetings? Now again, I've got a real belief about this. If I say this and you do the opposite to what I'm saying, that is okay. It's not me saying I've got all this right and I'm perfect with this. I'm not. But my feeling is for an initial meeting, we are meeting our clients to see whether or not we think we could work with them, and for them to see whether they think they could work with us. Now, if money has changed hands between you and the client has been charged, I don't know, half price fee maybe, for coming for an initial meeting, what happens then when you are the person that says, for whatever reason, maybe for a boundary issue or for a personal issue, what happens when you then say to the client, I'm really sorry, I'm not the counsellor for you. Let me give you some details of somebody else. How do you manage that when they've paid you 20 quid or 30 pounds for the privilege of coming to sort of spend that time with you? Give it back? Do you give them a refund? Or do you think to yourself, well, they've had my time, I've been with them for this amount of time, they've had something from the session, even though I'm not able to work with them? The other side of the coin, of course, and again, I use that pun loosely, is that if they've paid you something to come, they might feel that they're already invested. And therefore, even if something doesn't feel right within the relationship, they might feel that they might as well just carry on because they've already invested something. Now, if you don't charge for an initial meeting, which you might have gathered by now, I don't, and I never will charge for initial sessions. The only thing they've invested, if you haven't charged them any money, is time to come there, time to come and meet with you. That's all that they've invested. Now, I'm not saying that time isn't valuable, because it is, of course it is, but there's no monetary value there. And so therefore, if you then feel that you're in a situation where you're not the right counsellor for them, you can say that with knowing that you haven't taken any money from them. It doesn't half soften the blow and make it easier for you to get out something that feels quite difficult. So I hope that that kind of makes sense to you. It's something which I feel quite strongly about, and I talk to supervisees about it often. And sometimes supervisees make a decision to charge and to go along however they want to do it. And that's okay too. I'm fully supportive of that, because I also believe that we as counsellors should be valued and we should be paid for our services. So whatever you're doing, just have a think about what the implications could be, but also have a think about why you do what you do and see how comfortable it sits with you. There's nothing wrong with either option. And I'm most certainly not the oracle on this, but it feels important to share my viewpoint on it if I can, to give you some food for thought, really. So, quite a quick episode today, but that's my 2 penn'orth worth. Oh my goodness, the puns are coming fast and thick here, aren't they? That's my thoughts on money and counselling and how they sit together and how they don't sit together. I hope this has been somewhat interesting for you and it's brought up some feelings and things for you to reflect on. Even if you're currently still on placement and you're not at a point of qualifying yet, I'm hopeful that this will give you something to think about as you move forward, and you can always revisit this podcast at a different point if you want to. If you find these podcasts valuable and you would like to share with other people that are studying with you, perhaps at your college, or other people that you think might be interested, please do. It massively helps me out to help us sort of spread the word. And if you would like to leave a glowing review on your podcast provider of choice, that also helps me out too and is massively appreciated. So, until next time, it's time for me to say goodbye. But please do come and have a conversation with me. I will open up a post on my Facebook page and the details will be in the show notes below. I really look forward to chatting with you soon. Take care everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.